Hi there, welcome to another Excel tips video. I'm Sumit Bansal, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to create beautiful in-cell chart visualizations in Excel using a simple formula and a little bit of formatting. So you can create something like this, or like this, or something like this. So let me show you how it's done. So the function that will help us make these visualizations is the REPT function. Now the REPT function is short for repeat, where you give it a character or a set of characters, and then it will repeat it the specified number of times. For example, in this case, I have these habits and the number of days it's done. And if I want to quickly create a visualization, I can use the REPT function. It takes two arguments, the text and the number of times the text should be repeated. Now this text could be one single character, or it could be a string of characters. In this case, I would choose this check mark, and I'm using it as a cell reference. You can also hard code it in the formula. And then I would use these numbers, and instantly it is going to create this progress chart where it just shows me the number of tick marks. Now, instantly, this looks a lot better than the number of days, because this is a little harder to visualize, and this is a little easier to visualize. Now, this is not the kind of visualizations we will be making. We will be making a little more advanced ones, but this hopefully gives you an idea how the REPT function works. Now, let's look at simple bar charts that you can create. So here I have this data where I have the laptops and their sales, and I have used this function here, a REPT, and then I've used the pipe symbol, and then for these values I have divided it by 100,000. Now the reason I've divided it by 100,000 is because if I use these numbers directly, it would give me an error. REPT function can only accommodate up to close to 32,000 characters, and even if it can, you'll probably not be using 32,000 characters, because you just need simple visualizations that can fit within a limited column width. So in this case, I divided it by 100,000, and it gave me these numbers, which is like an approximation of how the chart would look like. But it doesn't look very good because there's so much space. And although it is okay, it's not really like a bar chart. But what you can do is you can use these fonts. So if I use the same formula, in this case, I've used a similar formula, but instead of 100,000, I made it 20,000, because I can have more bars and more lines, in this case, more pipe symbols. And then I changed the font to playbill. And when I change the font to playbill, this is what I get. Now, this is a lot more closer to a bar chart that I would get, and then I can use it in the visualizations. If you do not have playbill, let's say you're using a Mac OS, and I don't know if Mac has playbill or not. And if you do not have it, or you don't want to use it, then you can use these other fonts as well. There is Stencil and there is Britannic Bold. Now, Stencil and Britannic Bold, you can see there is a little bit of difference. In playbill, the bars are, it looks more like a block where the white color lines in between are very faint. In Stencil, it is a little more prominent, and in Britannic Bold, it is a lot more prominent. And to be honest, I like Britannic Bold because it looks more and has more like a pattern. Another thing you can do is, in this case, I have used the pipe symbol, but you can also use this character here. So here, if you look at this, this is actually a character that you can use. And to get this character, you can use this keyboard shortcut Alt 219. So if I hold the Alt key, press 219, it is going to give me this character. And I've used this in the formula. So in REPT, I've used this character, and then I have used B2 to B7, and then divided by 75,000 just to make the bar fit in the cell. You can do this kind of normalization based on your data set. But the idea is that this one here is like a single block of bar, and there is no there are no white lines in between, as there are in playbill, stencil, or Britannic Bold. So these are some of the ways you can use to create simple bar charts. Now let's see a little more advanced visualizations. So in this case, I have this data, and this is a visualization where it tells you where the score is, and this line here represents, you can say, 100%. So here I have a target of 100, and this is the formula that I've used. Now I will not be writing the formulas in the video, because if I do that, I have like 10-11 examples. It will take me a lot of time, but I will give you this file, so you can download this file and you can have access to all the formulas and all of these charts. Now in this case, what I've done is I have these scores, and the maximum it can go is 100. So I've divided this 100 into a batch of 20, because I do not want to have 100 characters in the cell. So I divided it by in such a way that there are 20 characters. And then I've used this as the repeating character, which is a dash. And then in this part, I'm first identifying what are the number of times the hyphen should be before the pipe symbol. So this is the part of the formula that does that. It there are 20 characters, one of them is going to be pipe symbol, so the remaining 19 are the dash symbol. So what number of those 19s would be before the pipe symbol? This formula gives that value by using the round formula and this value. And then we have the pipe symbol, and then the remaining ones would come using this part of the formula. So this is a simple chart visualizations that we get. Now, one thing to remember here is that in this case, I have used this font called Consolus. Now, Consolus is a font that is equally well spaced and works really well with these in-cell chart visualizations. You can use any font you want. For example, in this case, if I change this to, let's say, Aptos Narrow, which is the default font, see how it gives us. So this is what you get. If this works for you, it is okay, but I prefer using the Consolus font, which is something like this because it looks nicer. Another important thing to note here is if you want to change the color, for example, you want to change the color of the bar, you cannot just change the color of one single character. It would be applied to the entire cell. For example, in this case, if I want to make them blue in color, I cannot make one character blue. If I apply any font color, it would be applied to all of these characters in the cell. Uh, Here is another example where I have dot instead of the pipe symbol. It's exactly the same chart, but then you can see it instantly tells you that this is the value which is higher and this is the value which is lower. You can visually see it. What you can also do is, in this case, I have the dot in the middle and then it's flanked by these hyphens. You can remove them and it becomes something called as a lollipop chart. See what happens when I remove that. Now this becomes a lollipop chart and you can see this is the highest value, and it visually tells you the hierarchy or the way it's changing. So this is again a different kind of chart. You can use any one of them. It's the same exact formula. I've just replaced the pipe symbol with the dot. And again, this dot is something that you can get in Excel. For example, if I go to the insert here, insert tab, in symbol, you will have all of these symbols that you can get. For example, I have this one that I used earlier, and then I have the dot here, and this is the one that I'm using probably. And you can go through all of these symbols and see if there are more creative ways you can add them to your charts. Now, the next one, and this one is, I really like this chart because it is very visual and it looks really nice. And what I've done is I have these completion values for these project items, and I've created the progress bar. Now, in the progress bar, I've simply used these two characters, which is this, which is like a filled box, and then the other one, which is a blank box. And then I have used the round formula. So round formula takes 34, and then it is going to round it up, round it, and in this case, it is going to round it to 3 because it is less than 35. If it is 35 or more than 35, it is going to round it up to 40. So in this case, it fills 3 boxes because first of all, I converted it into 10. So 34 is 0.34. So I converted it into 3.4 by multiplying it by 10. And then I rounded it. So it became 3. So 3 boxes are filled and the rest are blank. In this case, 6 boxes are filled, the rest are blank. You can see that here 9 are filled, here 5 are filled. So this is how a simple formula, and you can get the progress chart. In this case, I've used Calibri because I was trying with other fonts and it didn't play well. So if I try and use it with Consolus, then you can see it doesn't look that great. But if you're trying to use this progress chart, then you can use it with Calibri. It spaces well, it aligns well with Calibri. Now the next chart here is this progress chart. The good thing with this progress chart is that it is not just showing you the actual bar, it is also showing you the empty space here. So you can see I have this chart and it has every cell is completely filled, and then it is either the dark block or it could be this one. And I have used these. Again, you can use this keyboard shortcut or you can use the insert symbol and get these. If you want to try some other variations, you can try that as well, but it's again the same simple thing. It does follows the same thing where instead of the previous example where I had these two things, instead of that I've changed the characters, which is this block here, this black square, and the empty one. Now it looks like this here, but in reality it's these two things that are being used, and it creates something like this. Now, one important thing I want to show here is that these are all black in color, but what if you want to color them? So instantly it would be clear that maybe this is the highest one, or a couple of higher ones are highlighted visually. You can easily do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these, go to the home tab, and here in conditional formatting, go to new rule. Now what we are going to do is apply a formatting rule based on the values that I have in column B. So I would select this option, use a formula to determine which cells to format. And here I can use $B2 because I do not want the column to change, but I do want the rows to change. So I've added dollar here before B, which locks the column but doesn't lock the row number. And now I would say if this value is greater than, let's say, 0.8, because these are in percentages, then We are going to format it, and then in formatting I'm going to go to font, not fill, because if I fill it is going to fill the cell color, but I want to change the font because this is more like text in the cell itself. So I'm going to go to font, and here let's apply green color. And now when I click OK, you can see these two are highlighted. Now if I want to highlight the remaining ones as well, you can just keep on adding new rules. For example, here I would come to manage rules, and this is the rule that is already applied. Let me click on new rule, and let's use another one, which is dollar b2 is greater than, let's say, 0.5. So anything that is greater than 0.5, that should get, let's say, yellow color. So I'd go to format, in font, and I would, let's say, choose this orange color. Now see what happens when I click OK. It is going to apply orange color to all of them, and the reason for this is, if I go back to manage rules, this is the first rule and it takes priority. So I do not want it, I want this to take priority, and anything that is left should get this value applied. So I'm just going to move this one down, and now when I click apply, you can see now it is fine. And if you want the remaining ones to be highlighted in, let's say, red color, you can either use conditional formatting, or a simple way would be just select this and then apply something like this here. So it is going to apply red color to anything that is not already formatted by conditional formatting. And now this looks a lot better. Instead of me going through the numbers, I can instantly see what are the two values that are standing out. Now you can also add these labels to these charts, and in this case you can see I have used this formula. I would just modify the formula a little bit so that these values also come here, so I can just hide column B and I can just show them the progress chart. See what happens here. So here I have the progress, but I also have the label. So I don't need this, I can hide it. And the way this works is, it's the exactly same formula, but I've added this part here. So what this part does is it adds a space character, and then I've used the text formula to have the same numbers, but then I formatted it using 0%, which means that it is going to pick up the number and then apply a percentage value here. If you want to apply, let's say, get one decimal point here, you can use 0.0, and then it is going to add one decimal point, and you can format it using the text function. So this is again a really smart visualization. It gives you the progress bars, it gives you the color, it gives you the labels. Now let's see another one which is also very nice. This is the actual versus target chart, where I have actual values here, target values here. And what this does is, it's the same chart that we saw earlier, but here, this part here. So if you look at this part here, this is the value, which is the actual value, and then it tells you whether we have this is the target value, and this tells you whether we have exceeded it or not. For example, in this case it has been exceeded, but in this case it has not been exceeded, so that the target value is ahead and the actual value is here in this bar. So again, this is a smart visualization. The way it is being done is, I just use the formula, but in case of the actual value, I replaced this block with this character. So what it does is, it replaces it so it has this white space on both sides, and then one thin line in the middle, so it looks nice. Now one limitation here again is that you cannot have this actual value or the target value in a different color. It would all be in the same color, because the entire cell gets the same formatting, whether it is the cell fill color or it is the cell font color. You cannot change it. So that is the limitation here. But again, if you want, you can add the labels, and this is going to be like a really smart chart. And then here I have something which is really useful, and it is used a lot. You've probably seen this in Amazon, I'm sure you have. And what this does is, there are these ratings, and then it applies these star ratings. Now what I've done is, I've taken these star values. You can insert them from Excel, but you can also use these formulas. So Unicare 9733, it is going to give you this star, which is completely filled, half filled, and completely blank. And then I've used it with this formula, and you can download and use this formula here, that uses the rating value. So in this case I have 4.3. So what it does is, anything above 4.25 gets 4.5, anything below 4.25 but above 4 gets 4, and anything below 4 would again get the value based on what is the quarter value. So in this case it is actually rounding up or down based on the 0.25 value, the quarter value. For example, 2.2 becomes 2, but 1.7 and 1.7 here becomes 1.5, 3.9 becomes 4. So this is how I've changed the formula. You can adjust the formula, but the idea is that you can get these star values easily, because we have these three characters that are there. Now, while I was doing the research, this may not be available in Mac or even in all the versions of Windows. So just have a look. If this part, especially this half star, is not available in your version, then you can use the full star and the blank star, and that also looks really nice. Now here I have this Harvey balls chart where it is colored based on the rating value, and the balls are also filled accordingly. So you can see if it is 4.1, then 4 balls are filled, and if it is 3.5, then 3.5 balls are filled. Now these are picked up from here. So I've referenced these cells in the formula. If you want, you can hard code the actual Harvey balls in the formula itself. If you want to get them, you can use these formulas, or you can also use the insert symbol dialog box. Now one important thing to note here is that if you select it, I have used the font as Aptos Narrow, because this is the font that works for the Harvey balls. I tried other fonts, and either they were not of the same size or they were misaligned, but this font worked for me. Now the way this has worked is I've used an increment of quarter. So either here I have completely full, then 75%, 50%, and 25%. So the formula checks whether the value is more than 0.125 or not. If it is more than 0.125, then it rounds up to 0.25, and we get something like this here, like this ball. And if it is more than 0.5 but less than 0.625, then it gets this half Harvey ball, otherwise it gets 3/4. So this is how the formula is working, and it picks up the right Harvey ball and then it colors it. So you can use this chart. If you want to get the rating next to the chart, then you can do that. I showed you how to do that by using the text function. So just append the text function next to the chart, so you would have the colored Harvey balls along with the text, which would also be colored. And then finally, I have the Gantt chart. Again, very simple. It's not really the most flashiest of the Gantt chart, but it's so easy to make. I've used this data where I have the start week and the duration, and it starts from here and then gives you the duration. If you want, you can use conditional formatting to somehow highlight the processes that are taking more than, let's say, 5 days or 7 days, and then that can be done. But this is like a very simple Gantt chart if you do not want to get into the actual chart and actual building that using Excel chart, because in Excel chart, creating a Gantt chart sometimes becomes a little complicated, but this is like a really simple version. So these are all the visualizations I wanted to show you. I will give you this file in the description so you can download it. You can go through the formulas. You can go through all the in-cell visualizations. And if there is any specific visualization or formula you want me to deep dive into, let me know in the comment section and I can make another video on it. That's it in this video. I hope you found this useful. Also, if you're liking these videos, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and click on the bell icon so that you never miss out on any new Excel tips video I come up with. Thank you and have a nice day.